nerds, welcome back. I'm Tyler. Today I'm going to show you how to install the conveyor system to your xTool P2 CO2 laser cutting and engraving machine. This is going to be video 1 of 2 where I focus mostly on the installation of these components and I test them out by cutting out the pieces of this really cool safety inspired sign design. Video 2 is going to focus more on the aesthetic portions of this sign, a lot less of the laser, where I show you the best way that I've found to paint, the installation and gluing of the frame and the backing components, as well as the sealer that I use to protect this for years to come. I don't know about you, but I could use a good reminder in my shop filled with all these dangerous sharp tools to keep my fingers and my wiener safe.
Ooh.
If you want a sign like this, the design is for free to my Patreons, so you can check that out in the link below. Or if you want to purchase the design to help support the channel, there's a link for that in the description as well. So thank you so much for supporting my little dream here. No time to waste. Let's get into the video and protect those fingers and wieners. So a good place to start, I think, is going to be looking at all the components that come in the box. Let's talk about the things that I received and how they're going to work in conjunction with the P2. Oh, and I'll be using this high-tech pointer stick to point everything out. I've got the conveyor system here. The conveyor is cool in that when it's plugged in, here's the plug here, when it's plugged in, it takes over the y-axis of the laser. So the gantry will come into place and it will lock. It will no longer move up and down, which is the y-axis. It'll only move on the x-axis, which is left and right. So the conveyor system takes over the y-axis and decides how far to move things in and out rather than the laser head moving up and down. So that's something to consider and understand about this system here. The second thing that you'll notice is this little rod here. There's one already installed, and this is for your basic materials. The secondary rod goes in these little slots here, and that's mainly for paper goods and leatherworking crafts. These are things that I don't, not only do I not do, but I don't even have like a way to test this. So if you're most interested in that component and using the machine for those types of projects, you may want to find somebody who specializes in it to show you exactly how it works. The second biggest components here are the rails, and I want to point out something important when you're trying to identify which rails are which. These two, this pair of rails here, have a marking on them. This marking identifies them as having metal in these spots. These two rails, this pair has plastic here. This pair goes inside the P2, and this area right here is actually where the laser head may come in contact with these rails if you're cutting through material. So these are metal, these are plastic. It's important because if that laser is cutting through material and comes in contact, these will be fine. These will likely catch on fire. So make sure that you will recognize the difference as we go through this process. Next, to work in conjunction with the rails are the risers. There's 4 of them. They connect on the bottom of the rails, and they basically just keep the rails level with the laser bed so that the material goes through straight rather than at a weird angle. To work along with the risers, we have these riser blocks. The riser blocks are only needed if you're cutting material between 0 and 8 millimeters thick. I will not likely be cutting material or engraving material thicker than 8 millimeters. These are hardware, so screws and whatnot, along with Allen keys. These two little guys here are adapters, and they're used here and here on the conveyor system to mount to the P2. These are 2 zip ties and these little blocks that will stick to the back. They're meant to be put in a place where you can zip tie and hold your exhaust hose out of the way. The last components are these little cable management deals. These go up on the inside of the P2 and they hold this cable up out of the way of the laser. Oh, and you have a manual. So don't forget the manual. And in my opinion, I think the manual is kind of lackluster. That's probably why you're watching this video. So I figured there's a need for more detailed instructions. I figured I'd help everyone out and provide that. And if you haven't purchased this yet, or you haven't purchased your P2 and you're interested in all these things, and you'd like to contribute to the channel, my man or woman, do me a favor, use the links in the description. It'll help me out. I'll get some kickback from xTool on that. It won't cost you anything extra, but it helps me know that I'm doing a good job here and helps me with funding so that I can continue to make videos like this for everyone. So thank you in advance. I really appreciate that. Let's get into it. Let's install this baby. Also for this video, I just want to make sure and detail that the riser base instructions are actually pretty good, and I don't think you'll have any issues putting this. Holy smokes. Why is that out there grabbing onto my ass? Oh. The instructions for this are actually pretty good. I didn't have any issues. I thought it was pretty obvious on how it works. I'm gonna go ahead and just assemble some of these things so we don't have to worry about it later. The first, like we talked about, because of the thickness of material I intend to use, I'm going to just set up these riser blocks with the risers, and they work like this. This just slides on like this, and it's got nice padding on there. All you have to do is tighten the set screw. Doesn't have to be too tight. And there's one. I'll just go ahead and do this for the remainder. And now that I have these all done, I'm also going to install them on these guys. And the installation should be basically the same for all of them. All you have to do, there's a little guide block in here. It's basically the lock that's going to, when you tighten it down, it'll lock it into place, along with this one here. This little nub here needs to go into this. So you loosen it, put it in, and as you tighten it, it should naturally catch, and you really shouldn't have to do anything. It should be pretty good there. Cool, so that's one. Let's go ahead and do all the other ones. And I'm installing it, it doesn't really matter at this point. These don't really have any, these are not specific to these. Any of these can go with any of these. And I try to be realistic with my channel, so things when I screw up or things don't go right, I try and showcase it so that you know how it's gonna be. These don't always magically seat. You may have to try it a couple of different times before it catches on that edge and is able to be tightened appropriately. Okay, so all four of those are done, and that's like 25% of the installation process. Next, we're going to get this guy installed in there. Open the riser base. I'm gonna open it from both sides since we're gonna have to do that anyways when we install the rails. And I'm gonna open this just for light. We're gonna take the tray out, and it's gonna fit and slide in to the 2A position. Let me show you that real quick. So right here is 2A. This should slide out, pardon the sound. There we go. And 2A, just like it says. Also, we need to remove all of the slats from the inside. Might as well do that now. Yeah, I guess these are slats, or I think they call them knives. Move the laser head out of the way. You really don't want to smack underneath there. That's where actually I think the camera's under here. Okay, knives are out. Now let's install the actual conveyor system. It bears mentioning that 2A is the height for the tray regardless of the material thickness that you plan on cutting. The difference though is if you plan on cutting thicker than 8mm material, you're gonna need these little adapters. The procedure is you install these in these locations here and here, and it basically becomes a little spacer. So that's what the adapters are for. They help offset for the thicker material that if you plan on using that. Again, I don't, so I'm not gonna install them, but if that's what you plan on doing, same height for the catch tray, but you'll be using these adapters to help offset that thickness. And for this portion, you're going to be preparing the 4 long button top screws. Well, okay, that's great. Try not to drop them on camera in front of all of your friends. So this is an important part, feed the plug through with the wire, the cable. You want to make sure that this is on the inside as it needs to go in that direction. And you'll see, I hope you can see from this point of view, there's 2 holes on the inside where the knife bed is. The instructions say to feed 1 through, and these screws feed into these portions here on the conveyor system, okay? Push it through. This will push all the way up against the front frame, and your nifty little green screwdriver fits these screws. Snug it up a little bit. It doesn't need to be very tight because you want to make sure that this other side also is aligning with the holes, and it is the same look and installation on this side. Just screw those babies in and then feed in your second screws through the bigger hole there. Make sure that these portions of the conveyor meet up against your face frame here, and I really didn't have to do anything. It seems to have naturally wanted to do that, so maybe yours will be the same way, nice and easy. And then tighten these up, snug them pretty good. And let me get a little zoomed in view so you guys can see exactly where the screws are, here on the left side and then here on the right side with the plug. Over here and then here, and then mirrored image right on this side, the same deal. You've got a screw hole here and a hole right here. That's where the conveyor is. And then here's your plug, like I was talking about, fed in. It's just attached here. There's nothing fancy going on. I'm not feeding it any certain way. It's just laying on the inside of the cavity. And since we're here, let's go ahead and plug that guy in. Right here on this rail is where you're supposed to put your wire guide. And this will keep the wire up out of the way. I'm gonna put both of them up here. And this will only go in one way. There's a little notch here. This only fits one way. The notch is on the bottom, in my case. Feed it in, and then it's got a little retention ring that you thread on and holds it on. There we go. Now that we have this guy installed, let's install the front rails. Keep in mind the front rails are the ones that don't have the little laser insignia, the identifier that separates them. This is the design for these and how they work. You can see there are 2 brass threaded inserts. We'll be using some of the provided hardware in those inserts to hold these in place. And then there's a little squeezy expansion or friction fit kind of deal here. Using that is going to lock these in place or allow them to fit. So if we look at the front of the conveyor system here, there's a wide slot and then a more narrow slot. The wide slot will allow that in. And now it's in place. So very easy, nothing magical going on there. Put them somewhere that's easy to reference. I kind of like this little area, maybe, right here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, and I could do on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so this one starts on the 6th square on both sides. And with your rails in place, you will be using the remainder of your screws. It would be even better is if you didn't need screws at all, like a knob, you know, bring it over and then you just tighten the knob on the bottom. I would prefer, it's just better for the user experience. So xTool, if you're watching this, which you said you were going to, if you're watching, that is a recommendation. Think about the user experience with these things. We don't like to, if there's something that we're gonna have to mess with, in this case, because you may be changing material widths fairly often, I think it makes sense for easy adjustability and use. Think about that. When I get done setting something up, I like to think, wow, that was nice. Not, damn it, now I gotta use this thing again. Okay, yeah, so that's really solid. Let's do the other one. Snug, doesn't have to be crazy tight. I don't think these are gonna go anywhere. These inner boys, you just have to feed them in through the back. Just like we found on the other side, there's a wide spot and a narrow spot. These also find a wide spot and a narrow spot. Keep an eye out for this guy. Make sure that you have this set up appropriately for this to minimize annoyance. Yep. And again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, and then this one starts on the 6th. And this is exactly, this line follows through to where the other one is. Same with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we start on the 6th line. And again, recognize the insignia that identifies these for laser use. Your gantry will come out here and your laser will move left and right on the x-axis, and the y-axis, which is this way, will be frozen, and instead the conveyor system will feed things in and out like this. So that plug being plugged into this conveyor system takes over the movements that are being relayed to this through your software, and this only moves left and right on the x-axis, and your material is then moved by your conveyor system. All right, move this up out the way, nice and tight. Or if you tighten this to German specifications, it's Gutentight. All right, y'all. I think that is it. We have everything installed here. I cut out some MDF, medium density fiberboard. Make sure that you know what you're doing when it comes to the materials, because normal MDF has a lot of bad crap for you in the adhesives. This MDF is described as NAF, or no added formaldehyde. So everything has a basic level of formaldehyde and other toxins in it when it becomes combusted in a situation like this. So you can't fully escape toxins, but if you choose your materials correctly, you may be able to limit the amount of really nasty stuff that you're around. You have to watch it as it burns or as it's cut or engraved. So again, just be careful with what you're putting in there. Make sure you do reading about what happens when you burn certain materials. Some plastics will release chlorine gas and all kinds of bad stuff. So just do your reading and be safe when you're figuring this stuff out. I also recommend something like this, or one of these guys, right? You'll find these at like Home Depot or Lowe's. These are specifically for things like this. They filter toxins out of the air. They filter like vapors and harmful things like that. So you're gonna want something like this, in my opinion, when you're working on this. We're about to get it in place, and there's a little readout right here. You can see that it's green. This is a pressure indicator, and there is a little chart that indicates how much pressure you need to use depending on the material that you have set up here. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna load this up. First, I'm gonna open up the lid. This way I could gauge as I'm feeding this through, make sure with these grid lines that the material's tracking straight. My sign that I'm gonna work on for this that you saw is going to be all contained within one run here. And my plan is, just to let you know ahead of time, I'm gonna run this one through This one will have all of the designed components that I came up with, like the visual stuff. It'll cut it out, and then the second run that I'm gonna put through will be only for the false or fake frame. And that's what's gonna make this look cool, in my opinion. Things that are framed look nice. The design of this would take me a long time to actually create a custom frame for. So if I can just cut an outline that I glue on top of the face of this piece, I think that's gonna look real nice and bring up the value of if I was gonna try and sell it, but also bring up like the visual value of it as well. I think it will increase the way that it looks, the visual appeal in my opinion. So as I move this in, I could already tell that this is too loose. Let me get you guys a little closer here. As you can see, it's too loose. These wheels aren't grabbing at all, and they need to be able to bite into the material so that as the bottom part, these are just tracking guide wheels, right? These apply pressure. The actual motor and machine aspect of this is on the bottom side. It's these ones down here, and these have like a grippy knurling or something to them that will help them grab material and run it through. So let's feed this back in here a little bit. And I'm glad xTool thought this through. So as you can see, now I have my front edge. This is all cut square. So I know if the front edge of my piece lines up with one of these grid lines straight across, that, and you can double check on the sides as well, but it should also, if this is straight, then the sides are straight. So mine is looking, that's pretty darn good. Let's go down here and look at the pressure indicator as we raise and lower the pressure. We have a little window here and it's showing green. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to adjust this to the right lowers or adds pressure, to the left raises or lessens the pressure. So I need to lower it and bring the pressure up. I hope you can see as I do this, the status on here change. So now it's yellow with one black bar. So I hope you can see that. And now that I have good pressure on it and I can feel it's biting really well, this lower knob here will allow me to test feed in and out. Lefty loosey, righty tighty, same rules. And then right here is our little test feeder. So we could feed the material in or out. And also it's a good way to test and judge if it seems like it's tracking straight. So you can go all the way back if you want, but I'm going to leave it just right about here somewhere. And that way, like I was saying, when I get in here into creative space, I could bring this up here and it'll use the little test laser to check this material, see the coordinates of where you want to start and how thick it is, right? It'll judge that. But I might actually just do a custom profile or something for this MDF. It's different than other materials. So I loaded the file up to xTool Creative Space and clicked the button to start the process, and on we go. I would recommend that you start, before doing any of this, a test grid, and this way you know what your ideal cuts are. For me, for 1/8 inch material, it was 20 millimeters a second at 50% power with like 15 tabs, I think. But you wouldn't really be able to cut out 1/4 inch material with a single pass, and I think with the conveyor system, it is limited to a single pass with the cut, so keep that in mind. But all in all, we're in about a little bit over an hour and a half. Let's go back to the garage and see what we got. And here are the results. So I've got 3 pieces. I have the frame, which is over here on the right. I have the engraved section in the center, and then I've got this blank piece over here on the left that's going to basically just add thickness to the entire sign, just like it's intended to, and then the frame will go over on the top, and I'll show you how to do that along with the painting and cleanup of this in video number 2. So that's basically it. Let's wrap this baby up. And there you go. Hopefully all the information you need to keep your finger and your wiener safe in the shop. Keep an eye out for video 2. If it's not out already, take a look in my library there. And again, if you're interested in this design, I have all the links in the description below. Thanks again, you guys, for hanging out and building with me all this time, doing this YouTube thing. It's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you guys next time.